we won the quarterfinals, but let's get stuck into how we won it, because this was not the way that I thought we were going to be dissecting the game. And whilst I'm incredibly jubilant and incredibly happy about the outcome, the way in which it happened gives me so much fear and concern for any opponent that England are going to be facing in the next round, Italy in the semi-final. How are you feeling, mate? Like, what is going on in your mind right now?
I'm quite tired, actually, because obviously an hour ahead, game kicks off at 9 p.m. here, goes to extra time, goes to penalties. I'd been nervous and anxious all day for obvious reasons. I thought Sweden were going to be a real challenge, and that carried on for 120 minutes plus penalties. Like, there was no point in the game, really, that I thought, oh, okay, England have this. Like, for the whole thing, I thought they just, I felt like they had almost 2 feet out the door, and every so often they'd put the toe back in, and you'd be like, oh, okay, maybe. Seriously concerned that I might have another ulcerative colitis flare-up, which I'd really rather avoid. I haven't had one since 2014. I've been in remission since, and I'd quite like it to stay that way. So if that happens, I'm going to be very, very annoyed. Someone will be getting a letter or a strongly worded tweet or something, because, I just found, like, I don't know about you, but just couldn't sleep last night. Like, my brain just felt like just very anxious and full, and so did my stomach, and I'm not sure that's I've had to watch some like mind-numbing TV for half an hour, or listen to some light-hearted podcast that I've already listened to and know what's happening. I've just had to kind of listen to again just to kind of try and take my head out of it, because I still can't fully wrap my head around how England are through.
That was the equivalent of listening to 2.5 hours of like heavy rock metal, and then just needing to like decompress, take a moment, like take in a nice like scenic view, watch an eagle for a minute, just to kind of process what really went down. I mean, the elation that I felt when that final Sweden penalty was missed, I was like, this could go on forever. Are we going to see Hannah Hampton take one? And when that moment actually finally dawned on me, like, oh my God, we have scraped this out of nowhere, not even really deservingly, and won and gone through to the semi-final, I exploded. I mean, we were on a retreat with She's a Baller and Rising Baller on our little summer party, and there was like 25 of us. We all just went absolutely mental. We were like, that is squeaky bum time and a half, that is jammy as fuck, Sweet Caroline blaring on the speakers, and not even really justified. It was just kind of a thank God we got it over the line.
For me, and I said this on some of our stuff on Girls in the Ball, for me, Sweden lost that as opposed to England winning that. They allowed England to stay in the game, and that was so dangerous, because they've shown that even when they're playing really poorly, we saw it against France, somehow they didn't lose that heavily. So somehow they managed to stay in it. And I think for me, what has concerned me and what's become a bit of a pattern is that when things don't go well early on in the game, the basics just go out the window. And I think that happened last night. Like, I think Jess Carter had a torrid time in the first half, and it just felt like when the first goal went in and then the second goal went in, England literally just couldn't pass the ball to each other. And I don't know how you address that, because that's a mentality thing. And it's weird, because when we see England keep themselves in it, get back into it, win the penalty shootout, yes, there's luck involved. There's decisions we can question that Sweden made that perhaps contributed to that. But you then have to say, like, the mentality to get themselves back into it. You're like, where is that when things go wrong early on in the game? Because that's a huge glaring problem. If you go down early on in the game, that you fall apart like a wet cake. Like, that's just not an ideal situation when you're looking to try and win a major tournament.
100%. There's a kind of flip side to that, is that we did get back into the game so late in the day that we were just lucky that we had sufficient amount of time, and the substitutes made so much of an impact, and also the penalties went away. There were so many ifs involved in that sentence, I think. But I 100% have to agree with you, Rach. I think from the outset, we didn't fully look at the races. And when that first goal went in, that Asllani goal in the second minute, from a mistake that we made, you can kind of, do you know what? You can kind of forgive a mistake. It's the nerves, it's the pressure. Sweden are a good team. They were sort of adopting a really good press. And then obviously mistakes happen. Like, any one of us could do that. Fine, fair enough. But then it's like, how do you react to that? And we saw absolutely no reaction. And like you said, the basics weren't there. They did fall apart. They weren't stringing passes together. It looked like a team that had kind of reverted back to that initial France game. And that was the fear for me, because I thought we'd got the dust off, and that we'd had the 2 games previously that went really well, really structured, back in the groove of things. And then all of a sudden it was like a complete regression, I think. And as soon as you had those 2 goals go in the second and the 25th minute with the Blackstenius effort, I was like, well, the stat is there's never been a team that's gone 2-0 down in the Euros competition that's then come back on to win it. So automatically I'm thinking, from the first half of the first half, that's probably us done, because I saw absolutely no way in which we were even trying to get a foothold back in the game. Like, the fear of God was in me. I was like, actually, I'm just going to have to resort to a night of quite heavy drinking.
I thought it was going to be a 4-0 opposite result compared to, because, Sweden kept on talking about the England game. And, I keep thinking about a swinging door. I think Sweden had the opportunity to slam the door shut on England, and they realised it was actually a swinging door. So every time they tried to slam it shut, it came back the other way, and they were like, oh, come back into it again. Nope, we're closing the door. Oh, you're back into it again. Nope, we're closing the door. And then somehow it ended up swinging that England managed to get themselves back into it. I think, look, there was a narrative generated. I always find this fascinating when you work in the media, and when you read narratives and you're like, where has this come from? Because this isn't something that I'm seeing in the environment that I'm in, the England media pack, the England press conferences, players, etc. No one seemed to be underestimating Sweden. Like, from everyone I'd spoken to, everyone was nervous about this game, concerned, particularly about the way they'd picked apart Germany, particularly the way that England had played against France. There was a lot of concern. England even, saying Sweden aren't talked about enough. They always go far in competitions. Somehow the Swedish press managed to switch that and make out that it was some sort of patronising comment, which I just thought was hilarious. But this narrative just kind of came out like England were going to underestimate Sweden. And I just entirely refuted that, because that was not something that I was seeing. I think England probably thought they'd put their shit performance out of the way and they were on this upward trajectory. But I would argue, facing Netherlands, making that switch with Carter and Greenwood, what the Netherlands had hoped would happen by targeting that side didn't really happen. So I don't actually feel like it was properly tested in the end ahead of a game like this. And that is absolutely, we said it, Sweden are going to come down the right side. They're going to target that. They're right, England's left. Absolutely, they did it. England couldn't get the ball out to their right side. Lucy Bronze spent so much of the game just completely isolated on the right side, swinging her arms in the air, desperate for a ball to be sent across to her. Probably one of the reasons that Serena decided to switch Williamson and Carter, not just because Carter was having trouble on that left side of the central pairing, but she didn't have the passing range to get the ball out to Lucy, and whereas Leah Williamson does. So those little tweaks, great, but still didn't feel like it was enough to swing the game in England's favour in any way, shape or form. And I just thought at half-time, I genuinely thought it was criminal that there were no substitutions made. And by 50 minutes, by 60 minutes, there were still no substitutes warming up. And that's when I was like, game's gone. Like, I don't understand how this is going to turn around. And I just thought, someone left a comment on our YouTube saying, I can actually understand not making those switches till 70 minutes because it could have given Sweden time to react and get back into it, which, okay, I can sort of understand, but how risky is it to think we can turn it around in 20 minutes? Like, I get trusting your bench, but Jesus.
I have to agree with you, Rach. I think the subs were made too late in the day for me, and it was clear from the 45 minutes previously that things clearly weren't going to plan and that it just wasn't going to be almost our night. And I think when you look at kind of the velocity of the mistakes that were being made, I mean, these were like really silly things, yes, in the first couple of minutes, but then you've got Hannah Hampton almost gifting that goal to Stina Blackstenius, obviously Leah Williamson's incredible slide and recovery tackle. My God, that will go down in the history books as, like, I mean, given the impact of actually what that sliding tackle then went on to mean. Lauren Hemp lost the ball for Sweden's second goal. You've got Blackstenius sort of running rings around Carter. I mean, I know, Rach, we kind of touched on it briefly in terms of how much of a torrid time that Carter was having. I mean, it was very clear that was going to be an avenue that Sweden felt that they could exploit. And it did expose Carter, I think, again, in terms of the pace and kind of her ability to be able to manage that area of the field and stop those chances coming in.
100%. And I think as tournaments go on, tactically, you're going to come across harder opposition, more tactically astute opposition. They'll have had the benefit of seeing you play 3 games, of analysing your most recent weaknesses. So to think that that wasn't going to be an area that was challenged is maybe a little bit naive, or to think that that had been challenged enough and it proved robust was perhaps a little bit naive given the quality of the challenges they'd had since the France game. Not to say that the Netherlands couldn't have done something, they could have, they didn't. So there was perhaps a naivety in thinking that that problem had been solved, because it hadn't. And despite not making any changes at halftime, England did look better in the second half, but the chances they were creating weren't going in. There was an Ella Toone 1v1, there was that Lauren Hemp header, and as those chances went by the wayside, I thought, okay, now they're getting to a position where they're controlling the game a bit better. Sweden have sat off the press a little bit, because that level of intensity is very difficult to maintain for 90 minutes. And the ball still wasn't going in. And I kind of thought, okay, it's not going to happen. I appreciate that the setup has gotten slightly better and they're finding each other better, but the goals aren't going in. There needs to be a switch. And there was a lot of talk in our chats, me and Sophie. They need to go 3 at the back. They need to bring on Michelle Agyemang. You need to have 2 up front. You need to give the Swedish defence something to think about. And so glad that that happened, because what an impact it made. It was a stark difference. And part of that is Sweden sat off. And I think unless you're 3-0 up, you cannot assume a team is out of it, because 1 goal back at 2-0, suddenly you're on the ropes. And a friend of mine messaged me and said England need a goal before 80 minutes if they're to get back into it. So it's what, 100%. 79 and 81.
And I think, England was super lucky. There was that moment at the end of the first half with, I can't get back to this saying this name again.
Rolfo.
Fridolina Rolfo was running at bronze and then tried to bend the ball into that bottom corner. Hannah Hampton making an absolutely outstanding save. And we're going to go on and speak a little bit later about Hannah Hampton's impact on this game, especially obviously given how much we have to dive into what happened with the penalty shootout. But I've got to agree, Rach, it just felt so stale. It felt like we weren't problem solving any of the issues that we were having in the first half. So for then Serena to do absolutely nothing about it and expect, we keep coming back to this thing, if we do the same thing and expect a different result, is the sign of madness.
Who is it? Bonnaday? Laurent? About quoting Einstein before this tournament?
This is like the 3rd time I think we've had to use that phrase, which is wild. But then, lo and behold, thank God, out of the heavens, Esme Morgan, Beth Mead and Michelle Agyemang coming on after 70 minutes. Then you've got Chloe Kelly coming on for Lauren Hemp in the 78th minute. And then within a minute, she puts in that cross for Lucy Bond. Absolutely beautiful, powerful header, taking it past the keeper. And then it felt like, fucking hell, game's on.
To be honest, when the subs came on, they made an immediate difference. When the formation change was made, that's what that little note, I'm assuming, said. The little note that everyone keeps. Esme Morgan brought on 1 for Lucy Bronze and 1 for Leah Williamson. I imagine it said, we're going to a back 3, lads. Buckle up. You Beth Mead in midfield at one point, like players doing the business, doing jobs that they're not used to doing. And I do think from the moment the subs came on, momentum shifted. I did feel like a goal was coming in the way that they'd been playing. Chloe Kelly, what a big game player she is. And I know, like, a lot of people will see these games and say, these players have to start. And I can understand that argument. But the impact they have off the bench is often also attributed to the opposition having set up for a certain situation. And their impact is so good because the opposition then has to think of something different. If you start a game with some of these players, you can almost manage the situation better. You can say, okay, this is the situation, this is their starting lineup, this is how we're going to manage that situation. Bringing them off the bench, you're suddenly throwing a cat amongst the pigeons, and they have to think about 2 strikers now. They have to think about a Chloe Kelly who can send across on a dime. And I think that's why they're so impactful. They're quality players, but they're also game changers. And I think coming off the bench can really change a game. When the second goal went in, I kind of thought, I did think England were going to win it in 90 minutes, and Alessia Russo, with maybe the final kick of the game, had the chance to win it. She just took one too many touches. And I did think when that happened that England were going to rue those moments that they didn't take and maybe look at, should we have brought those players on 10 minutes earlier when we could have put the game to bed? I still couldn't believe it though. Do you know what I mean? After watching what you watched, you're just like, how in the world are England back in this game? I do not know.
I honestly, by the seat of our pants, I mean, Rach, I've got to echo what you were saying there about Chloe Kelly. I mean, I have to give her so much love for the confidence that she had coming off the bench. There was that lovely moment with the camera pan to her getting ready with the shin pads. She had one of there was a picture of her and her husband on one shin pad, and a picture of her dogs on the other shin pad, and she's putting like the wrap around it. Tiny shin pads, I mean, going to make absolutely no difference if someone clatters into you, but really gorgeous moment. And then as soon as she entered the field, it kind of felt like there was this kind of new energy, there was this kind of presence, there was something to be scared of, because I didn't feel like Sweden were particularly scared of England at all. In fact, it kind of felt like Sweden had become a little bit complacent because of the way that we were playing. Like, there was no real threat to them. So
they took Aslani off.
Yeah, it was that they were so unscared and kind of pretty much getting to the point where they thought the game was wrapped, that they were taking off, you know, big player Aslani, Rolfo as well, and Chloe kind of injected that again.
Like, Aslani came off in the 77th minute, Chloe Kelly came on in the 78th. That was when the game changed, like, completely. And I do feel England had momentum from the subs at 70 minutes. But Aslani coming off, like, she'd had Kira Walsh's number throughout the game. Kira Walsh couldn't get into the game. Aslani was doing a phenomenal job. And I just think they're the moments when I talk about, like, Sweden losing it, those little decisions here and there. Aslani coming off, you know, taking off Blackstenius when the game is potentially taken away to penalties, 117 minutes taken off Blackstenius, you know, just little things like that. Maybe Blomqvist is a better penalty taker, I don't know, but I didn't even check if she took a penalty, because honest to God, Chloe, I know we're going to get into the extra time and penalties, but we need to talk about shooting penalties from a photographer's perspective, because I genuinely didn't see a single one, because I was focused on, like, all the photographers will run behind the goal. That's where everyone goes for penalties. They go behind the goal, they want to shoot the player taking the shot. I always stay a little bit in line with the player shooting, so that I can get the team celebrations, or if, say, England, I can shoot Hannah Hampton. If England are defending, if England are trying to save a penalty, I can shoot Hannah Hampton. More often than not, majority of players are right-footed. They'll take a penalty and their momentum takes them around this way, and that's when they give it beans, right? That's when you get the celebrations. So I didn't know how the penalties had or hadn't gone in. I just found myself going, okay, I'm shooting another one, it seems. Oh, it hasn't happened. I'm shooting another one. It seems. Is this the clincher? No, I'm shooting another. Like, it just kept going and kept going. It was ridiculous. And those moments, Falk, for example, taking the 5th penalty.
Whoa. Rach.
Okay.
Before we get onto that penalties, we have to absolutely give some massive love to Michelle Agyemang. We wouldn't even be in penalties unless this young goddess
I'm doing the
fires home 103 seconds later after Chloe Kelly's cross and Lucy Bronze's header. I mean, Rach, you said she needed a statue, and I could not. I exploded. The group chat went off. I was like, she's been on the pitch a matter of minutes. I mean, she turns up in these games. There is absolutely no fear in her. She might as well be having a mess around in the park. It was just so cool, so calm. She was in the right place, just a cheeky little tap in. She was exactly where we needed to be in that moment. And the best thing about it is that was the first time I'd see her, like, absolutely go crazy. There was a split second where she really, really celebrated, appreciated the momentousness of, like, what she'd just done, and then immediately went into the goal, grabbed the ball out, and then going to place it again. And it goes back to that professionalism that we saw when she scored her first goal just a few months ago.
I think what's fascinating about Michelle Agyemang is she will gain a huge amount of confidence from a manager turning around to her in key moments in a major tournament, and even in the Belgian game.
Save this squad. You, 18.
Yeah, she's not saying, look, we're 4-5-0 up, I'll give you a few minutes so you can get your first cap. Wouldn't that be nice? She's saying, you're a game changer, and I need you to come on and change this game. And that, I imagine, gives a player so much confidence coming onto a pitch going, I've got the manager's trust, she believes I can do it, I believe I can do it. My squad believes I can do it. My family believe I can do it. And she plays like that. She's playing like she's in her 2nd or 3rd or 4th major tournament. No, not at all phased. Immediately getting stuck in. Immediately causing problems. I think having that 2 up front was a brilliant idea. You could see her linking up with people. Like, I just thought I'd messaged in a separate group chat, I'd say a mere 20 seconds before that ball came in, saying, man, imagine if Michelle got this moment. Imagine if it was her who got this next goal. And I was just like, oh my God, I need to send more messages like this in the chat, because what the fuck? And the fact that she immediately went and picked the ball out of the back of the net, I was like, this kid, like, this, she knows her role. She knows what her job is in the team. She knows how to do it. and
she's a machine.
Got an unbelievable moment, but equally knew like there was more to do and job isn't done yet. And I just thought, wow, yeah, build a statue now. Like, I mean, I'm all for it. Let's not put pressure on the young players, right? Entirely. But at the same time, let's appreciate when they do something magic, because there's some incredible moments.
Before we went into the penalty shootout, we had Leah Williamson down.
This was a mental moment. It just summed up England.
100%. This was not a good thing to see at all. I think there were reports of her being on crutches. We don't know how serious
she rolled her
it is.
ankle.
There hasn't been any news about it, so we're sort of waiting to see like how that could impact possibly the semi-final.
Someone commented, please not Williamson. She's the only decent defender in that back line.
We've got Leah Williamson hobbling off. We've got Lucy Bronze strapping her own leg because the physio
are busy.
is making sure that Hannah Hampton's bleeding nose is being blocked with a tampon. Like, we're literally on our arse.
And Greenwood's shoulders being popped back in.
Yeah, this was like, it was like a scene from a battlefield going into this penalty shootout. So the expectation, given how we'd played for the majority of the game, given that we'd only just scraped into this situation, given that half our players were like on their asses, I wasn't filled with like a great amount of confidence that this was actually going. And also at this point, I'm still appreciating that on paper, Sweden deserved to win this game. So we go into this penalty shootout. We have Sweden's goalkeeper, Jennifer Falk, saving penalties from Lauren James, Alex Greenwood and Beth Mead before Chloe Kelly finally broke the streak with her trademark run-up. She knows how pivotal that goal is going to be, and the run-up that she does, this kind of high-legged, kind of like almost like a track athlete, kind of like preparing for this run, and then it is just
some sort of like taekwondo fighter, like, or something from the Matrix. I don't know what it is.
So agile and so ninja-like,
and the smirk beforehand. The goalkeeper was faffing around. She was making her weight. And Chloe Kelly was doing her little traditional. She like rolls the ball, I think, until it lands exactly as she wants it to land. It's like that,
the spin.
And then she stood up and just gave her this smirk, as in like, that's not going to faze me, love. And I don't know. I watched so many players who maybe I'm used to watching score penalties. LJ less so. I don't think she's necessarily a big penalty taker. I've not seen Beth Mead take many penalties, but that I can recall, you know, for Russo to get up and score the first one. And then Greenwood missing, that surprised me as well. And I just kind of thought, like, and then Grace Clinton, like, it's not a good penalty. People just weren't taking very good penalties. I know Falk was saving them, but some of them just were not great.
The quality was shocking, I've got to say.
Yeah, and it was like nobody wanted to be the one. It was just like, I don't want this mantle. No, thank you, please. So yeah, I think absolutely the most bonkers penalty shootout, one of the worst penalty shootouts I think ever.
Honestly, it gets even more unusual then, because Falk then has the chance to win it for Sweden with the fifth penalty and skies it over the crossbar. And I was just like, in that moment when you know that you have the opportunity to clinch the game, you have other players there who are better placed to take that opportunity. Why they made that decision, I will never know. That is one that I think could have. That's another pivotal moment, a bad decision.
They didn't practice penalties, apparently, the Swedes.
Well, it was clear that I don't think either camp had. Grace Clinton
apparently England had. That's what's worrying.
Wow, I mean, I didn't see much.
Practice more. Let's do that again.
Technique in that. Grace Clinton then misses another penalty, and Hannah Hampton then denies Sophia Jakobsen. Lucy Bronze then steps up, literally hobbled to the spot. She's strapped her own leg during the game.
She's ripping off the strapping at this stage. It was proper hardcore. She's like, I can just put this on. I need to get rid of it now. I need to score a penalty.
It was so old school England. It was almost like Paul Gascoigne era type stuff. She steps up, smashes the penalty into the roof of the net. I mean, Beth Mead was saying, you know, she became a physio, she became a striker, and she nailed the best penalty of the day. Then we get to Homburg, handing England the victory with another penalty over the bar. God love
this kid. Why would you put that on a teenager? I just... God love her. Like, just, I can't... All people like to put. That's like putting Michelle Agyemang up to take the most important penalty when you've got other options. I really feel for her.
Though? Michelle Agyemang, okay. I would.
Okay, no, but I'm just using it as an example, right? You know, but like, I just think a teenager. Like, I hope that doesn't haunt her. I hope she's getting an arm wrapped around her and she's being told, "Look, you're going to be in plenty more major tournaments. Your moment will come again." But for me, it felt like, I think just after that first half, I just thought this is Sweden's time. Like, they're finally. I genuinely thought like they could beat Italy the way they were playing. I saw them play against Spain in the semi-final of the World Cup. It went to extra time. I genuinely thought they played well. They knew what they had to do. It was just a case of executing it, which is very, very difficult, understandably, against Spain. But I felt like they at least knew what the game plan needed to be. And I thought, maybe this is Sweden's moment. Maybe finally they're going to win a major tournament again. And there's just decisions that just turn games, and there's a couple of them there where you're just like, that's where you just lost it. You had the opportunity, and I just like, that's what makes it so hard to wrap your head around, is that like, yes, England improved in the second half. Yes, the substitutions made such a difference, but there were so many opportunities for Sweden to have put that game fully to bed.
So many opportunities within the game, but also
within the penalties.
Opportunities in that penalty shootout to put them to bed and didn't. So after the game, Sweden goalkeeper Jennifer Falk revealed that she was asked to take the fifth penalty by their manager Peter Gerhardsson. They had agreed penalty takers before the game.
You're a goalkeeper. Are you a goalkeeper? Do you take one of the first 5 penalties, or do you say, I'll make myself available if we go into almost sudden death?
100%. But I'd step up for the team if I had to, and there was absolutely no one left. But it's not
in the first 5.
It's not my role. It's not anything that goalkeepers are trained in. It's like, you can have some training if you're in a major tournament, but it's not anything that you've been training in real life situations. Like you just wouldn't. The best thing I suppose about Homburg and the disappointment that she felt in that moment missing that penalty is that so many others had gone before her and missed in the same and couldn't put the situation to bed. The elation that I felt when that final penalty was missed, and also the upset that I felt for the Swedish team, because they did deserve to win that. They were better than us. That was an
had a better game plan.
Definitely, I would have walked away from that had that been England who played like that and felt that we were robbed. So massive credit to the Swedish team for the game plan that they executed and how well they did. It wasn't a shining example of women's football, that game, and the penalty shootout.
No, but we don't always have to fucking bring it back to that. Like, I just feel like we're beyond having to have good examples. We don't do that anytime a men's play a shit game. We don't go, well, this is a bad example of men's football. Like,
that
we're
penalty
beyond
shootout
kind of
was shocking.
No, actually,
like
I saw
the quality of that penalty shootout.
Yes, but shit penalty shootouts
shocking.
have happened in men's football too. So this isn't just a women's football thing. But I did see a hilarious tweet, and I did share in the WhatsApp group, that said, we need to make sure that footage of this penalty shootout does not get leaked, because they're going to want to ban women's football again. And I think people are so quick on social media, like some of the stuff. The fact that the fucking goal scorers' initials, Aslani, Blackstenius, Bronze and Agyemang, spells out ABBA. Like, how are you seeing this? How are people that quick on social media with some of their, like, I don't know. You know, someone was talking about them singing ABBA, and someone else tweeted a reply saying, well, I guess it's slipping through their fingers now, like another ABBA line. I just, like, people are so funny, but equally, that was giving me some levity after a game where I was just like, I did not enjoy a single minute of
That's
time,
how we have to handle
time.
it, mate. Sarcasm and humour and making fun of us is the only way that you can get past these kind of moments of high stress and anxiety. It now means that England face Italy in the semi-finals next Tuesday in Geneva. Oh, God, we go again, Rach. We go again. It's one of those games where, on paper, you kind of fortune England. What's happened in practice and what's actually going on in the England camp.
Yeah.
Pre-tournament, I'd have gone, Christ, that's actually quite good opposition. We've got a really good chance of that game. Now,
if anyone says England had an easy route or whatever, like, watch some of their games back, because they've not made it bloody easy. They got out of the group of death. And that was the whole thing, you know, as well. People going like, oh, England fans being all like, oh, I'm glad we got Sweden, blah, 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 blah. Like, you're underestimating them. You telling me Sweden weren't delighted they didn't get France? Like, they absolutely would have been thanking their lucky stars they got England and not France in that semi-final. Like, it happens for both sides. But I think when you get to this level at a knockout stage, doesn't fucking matter who you get. Anything can happen on the day. Honest to God, like, that Italy game fills me with fear as well.
Talk about this in later pods. We always got England being inconsistent. We've got Italy on firing form, being incredibly passionate and looking quite strong. Let's just save it for another pod, Rach, because right now I think we're all just trying to dissect.
I need to relax,
process what happened last night. Yeah, take a second, mate. Have a glass of wine, watch an eagle, and just
2 o'clock,
settle in.
Yeah, okay.